Welcome back to the Steps to Soul podcast. Today's episode, not all information is good information. So I'm sure all of you out there listening, you've been on your phone, you've been scrolling the internet, you've seen the YouTube, the Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, whatever Meta has converted everything into these days. If you look to buy or sell a business or you've looked to get into this space, you've seen the ads, you've seen what I'll call a lot of the garbage out there, a lot of the smoke, and you've seen all the different gurus, all the different pitches, all the different ideas. At the end of the day, it's real simple. There's only a certain few ways to really buy a business, get it done correctly, and quite frankly, get the right information, Chris. There's a lot out there that's bad. There's a lot that's misconstrued. And surprisingly, there's a lot of great resources that you don't have to pay for that are all around you that you can source. Am I correct, my friend?
You are exactly right. You know, we live in a time where there's more information available than ever before in all of humanity, right? In the history of man, we've got way more information. It's overload, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people are making better decisions with that information. In fact, I think it's quite the opposite is happening a lot of times. For sellers, they come into meetings with me. They've got ideas they picked up from YouTube, from AI, or someone selling a course, and they often have no way of knowing whether that information actually applies to their business or, you know, if it's just bad information. I don't think information isn't the problem anymore. The challenge is knowing which information deserves your trust, which deserves your attention, and which information could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. You could really be relying on some bad information. So I know, Brandon, you would probably agree that in today's challenge is finding information. It's not finding information, it's filtering out the bad information. Am I wrong?
You're right, and it's finding the right source and the right trusted source. The democratization of the internet has been great. It has allowed people to get information they never had access to. They were gatekeepers that withhold basic fundamental stuff. That's a good thing. Let's not be wrong. The ability we can now use AI to find great information to help us make critical decision-making processes is good, but it's also as good as the prompts you put in, to give a little tease there, but also who's been setting it up and teaching it. And that's where today we're going to focus on really 6 major issues that I would consider are bad or just not properly tuned up that are circulating around that you and I see almost on a daily basis, because obviously for those of you listening, that's what we do for a living. So all the digital marketing is bombarding you and I at a level that is almost unbearable. I don't even have time to open my phone some days without wanting to pull my hair out with some of the junk that just gets thrown at me 24/7. Some of it, like we'll talk about, isn't always wrong. But in this business, Chris, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. A lot of them aren't good. And knowing how to properly set things up, as you said, is going to save you a lot of money, time, and a lot of headache. And that's where I feel like the friction point is for most people. It's the headache that it generates because they don't know what they're doing correctly and they feel stonewalled, pushed out. They just feel used. So today, if you're listening, if you've thought about buying, you're thinking about selling, these both apply to you very carefully. So from both different angles. So listen up. So let's dive into the first issue really, Chris, is the bad information funnel that is out there. You know, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or X now, whatever you want to do. There's a ton of gurus selling courses. That's the biggest funnel of misrepresented information is the courses out there. Not just from gurus, but anybody trying to sell a course. That is the new fad, right, Chris? Like, get online, sell a package for cheap or expensive, whatever you want. Get people hooked, show the dream, show how easy it is, you know, all that nonsense. It's easy to sit there and get someone to pay you $1,000, a couple $100, whatever it may be. You're never going to see from this guru. They're not going to show you proof. Even not a guru. Even just somebody saying, I have experience in the industry. Be careful with that. Be careful for the zero money down dream schemes, the pitches, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right, Chris? And we see that pitch in these groups all the time. And not saying a group, but just individuals talking about it. You know, nothing's worse than when I see a reel about a guy saying, I made $10,000 a month off a laundromat and I didn't do anything all week. That's BS. There's no such thing as fully passive ownership, Chris. There is no unicorn. And for those of you listening out there, if one of those ever comes through my door, I will buy it before I ever sell it on the open market. Because if it's real, I'm going to buy it. Because I'm going to get a good chance to see it first. So, you know, it's tough. But at the same time, Chris, those funnels out there, the different platforms, once it gets on your algorithm, you've seen them. They just hit you. They keep coming. They keep firing.
I think one thing we've both noticed is that bad information, yeah, is starting online, right? That's where people are finding it.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is it doesn't stay online. And what I mean by that, it's eventually showing up with conversations with you and me. It's even showing up at the negotiating table. Buyers
Mm-hmm.
constantly are repeating the same talking points that they've heard or they've been told or preached to, and they're asking the same questions, whether they're right or wrong. But
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about bad information, so these are questions that they're in the wrong time or they're on the wrong place. One of the biggest things that we've seen is that these buyers are proposing the same unrealistic deal term structures because they're
Mm-hmm.
all learning from the same handful of sources. And
Mm-hmm.
after you and I, we've been in this business long enough. I don't know if you can. I'm sure you can, but you can almost tell what podcast, what course, what YouTube channel they've been watching, what
Yes.
they've been listening to by the questions that they're asking or the way they're presenting themselves or their deal.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon, have you ever had a buyer come to you and within talking with them within 5 minutes, you know exactly what kind of content they've been consuming and where they've been getting it?
110%. We had one in the office not even 2 weeks ago, which was kind of the
Right.
inspiration for this episode. I mean, we're not going to name names of who they saw the information from, but long story short, he came in and was talking about, I just need 10% down, but I can do this and this. And we're like, okay, well, how much capital do you have? Well, no, but I was going to sell equity rollover. I'm like, well, do you know what that means for the seller? Well, what do you mean? They just inject capital. I'm like, yes, but they have a full standby for the life of the SBA loan. I didn't know that. What do you mean? I don't get all the working capital for free. I don't get all these other, everything's, I'm like, reset, slow down. But then also there's the opposite. We had another young man come in, very smart, early 20s, six-figure salary, looking to buy a business. We already had just gone under contract with an offer and acceptance. And he said, yeah, I get bombarded about his videos, and I didn't think that sounded right. So I wanted to come sit with y'all and talk. And we laid out the flaws in that logic, also what to watch for. And he goes, man, I'm so glad I met with you, because had I followed this logic, I'd have probably wasted 2 years trying to get deals scrounged up. But now I know I need a little more capital reserved. I need to do this and this correctly. Then I can make a move for a company the size I wanted to buy. And that's all we told him was we just want to give you good advice. Why go waste all this time bird dogging, looking for these off-market opportunities that don't exist, that you don't have the means to do a deal for? Could you get lucky 1 in 1,000, hit a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then? Yeah. Broken clock, it's twice right a day? Yeah. But let's be honest, that's a really tough way to prospect. And that's where, let's talk about the biggest deal here. Because you said it best, those issues show up later on in deal structure or show up later on in conversations. And the number one we see, Chris, and let's talk about it right now, of the 6 things I mentioned, the segments, the zero money down dream. Let's just get this out the way right now early in the episode. It does not happen and it doesn't work. Is there a possibility that one guy got someone to fully leverage buy out his business one time? Yes. You know how much that statistic is? Probably 0.00001% of the time. So if your whole theory is to go buy a business that way, you are going to be spending your entire life looking for that opportunity. It's not likely. And quite frankly, there's no reason. When a seller has hard assets, buyers listening, and sellers, is good for you to think about this. If someone proposes this to you, they want to buy your business and pay you back based on the cash flow with no money down. If you have, let's say, $500,000 in assets and the business is worth $2 million, that buyer day one offers you that, you take it. They take the $500,000 in assets and walk. And now you've got a business you inherited back with no assets. They've made a profit and ran. And what do you have, right, Chris? I have seen and heard that story time and time again when people fall for that nonsense. It's not a good idea, and it's not a smart play. I mean, am I right? I mean,
No.
Lenders don't like it either.
No. And I think you'll agree with me. We are not against creative deal structures. There's a time and
That's
place
how we make our living.
Absolutely. We have to be creative. So there's a time and place for seller financing, for earnouts, other tools. They all absolutely have their place in deal making and deal structures. The key word I'm going to use here today is balance. A good structure is going to share the risk between buyer and seller. I think the problem is when somebody shows up expecting the seller to take virtually all of the risk because they're willing to buy their business, as they quote unquote, when they're bringing little or nothing to the table, that's not creativity. That's not balance. That's a sign that they're not financially prepared to buy that business in the first place, and they need to go back to the drawing board and rework their plan. Again, this goes back to bad information. They've been told by a lot of gurus out there, this is what you can do. You don't need any money except for that $5,000 a month you're paying me to teach you that you don't need any money. It's a vicious cycle they're in.
It is. And Forbes said it best. The zero money down concept is complete nonsense. Like, let's be honest. Even Forbes came out and addressed the issue in the room. That's a pretty reputable publication. And a lot of businesses have seller financing components, whether it's with an SBA loan, whether it's just cash down payment seller financing. We see that all the time. That's not a problem. The problem is when they're, like you said, undercapitalized buyers being told there's all these creative ways. And let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, SBA says you can do a loan with no money down, and the seller has to do the equity injection. But the problem then becomes that you talk to any lender I've ever spoken to, a reputable lender, they're going to say, that's great, it happens. If you don't have the capital to support the working capital to keep the company open, why were we going to lend you millions of dollars with an SBA loan? Why? It doesn't make sense. You have no skin in the game. You're going to walk day one when it goes south because you've got nothing to lose. So buyers out there listening, that's not the way to go about doing it. And for sellers, if someone approaches you like that and that's their game to go to SBA, just know that you're going to be doing a full standby and personally guaranteeing the loan for someone else. And if they fail, you fail. That's not a way to do your deal. I'm telling you right now, it's not. Just flat out isn't. So if you're listening, that's why we hate this scheme. In the rule book, is it real? And the guru is going to push back on it. Yeah, it's real. It's in the SBA rules. But the rules are not what the banks lend on. Banks have their own criteria, and they will push back on that very hard. And if that's your whole process, don't bother calling us. Please don't. There's only a rare exception that works. When it's a NA6 and NA6 code transaction, Chris, HVAC buy another HVAC out, you're a strong strategic operator, you can absorb no money down. But then again, that's massive industry experience, collateralized assets, cash flow to support. Very different situation. And for 99% of people out there, that's not what they're using it for. So sellers out there, you lose money, you lose time, and also you really just expose your business to a massive amount of liability in yourself personally for no reasons, Chris. And that's the biggest thing that makes me angry is the buyers don't realize that. The sellers are taking all the risk for you. That's not how deal structure works. Deals work when both parties find common ground, skin in the game, and it works. It makes business sense. So if the deals make business sense, don't approach the prospects. But let's talk about the course economy, Chris. You beat me to it. These acquisition courses or groups, networks, whatever you want, affiliations, whatever these guys call them. Be very, very careful what you're willing to pay someone 6 figures for online for advice. Please, let me just stress this to everyone listening. And Chris, I want you to comment on this too, because this is probably my pet peeve. I get asked all the time, well, I hear about this service or that service, and they're going to help me with my deal structure, and they're giving me $100,000 in value for $25,000. Why would someone give you a 75% discount on their services? Who does that, right? In theory, could it be worth that much? Maybe. I don't know. But why? Why even do that? Why? Because they can tie you into a monthly retainer. You're going to pay them these fees, and all they got to do is send you a document. They send every single person the same playbook, right, Chris? It's not preparing you. It's making you a generic carbon copy to go out into the market, and we see it coming a mile away. They're teaching. There's gurus I've done $100 million deals, so let me teach you how to apply this to a $2 million transaction. That language and deal structure does not apply to the same deal you're going to be doing, right? I mean, how many times have you seen that where these buyers come in, taken a course, want to apply these outrageous LOI terms that don't even apply to the deal they're working on, and just suffocate themselves and waste their own time?
Yeah. No, we see it time and time again. And we see what I've seen lately is the websites. Everybody builds their own little website for their own
landing page.
Whatever they want to call themselves, a capital acquisition firm or a private, they try to call themselves a
one-man show.
Yeah, one man private equity firm. I think, let me back up. I think there's some really good education out there in a number of the courses and programs that I've seen, the ones I've looked up and actually not used, but I've kind of vetted them, and there are some good stuff out there. But learning, and I want to say this, learning about acquisitions and how to do them, don't take us wrong. We're not saying that's a negative thing. You should actually learn that. But you need to learn it from the proper channels. You can reach out to me if you want to. I'm not going to give anybody an endorsement here, but learning about acquisitions, educating yourself about anything to do with deal making, deal structure, positive. I'm all day positive. Everybody should be learning if that's what you want to do. The problem is when education gets confused with experience. So when you're trusting somebody else's experience because they say they've done this and they've done that, have they really? Or are they just teaching you a course because that was their plan? That's their marketing plan to, hey, I can tell buyers how to buy businesses. Even if they bought some, it doesn't mean their information is correct. Reading about negotiations isn't the same thing as sitting through 12 hours of negotiations. Watching somebody explain due diligence isn't the same thing as managing a deal when something unexpected surfaces. Experience still matters. And why I'm telling you that is, like, the gurus teaching these courses, some of them, again, we're not naming names here today, but they're not doing this. They're not actively involved. They're actively involved in getting you to buy their course.
Mm-hmm.
That's completely different. You need to go to the source of people that are actually doing this, that are doing it on a daily basis, who are buying companies and selling companies. And that takes a little bit more work than finding somebody on social media and saying, oh, they must know what they're doing. Look at all their followers and likes and people talking about them. Brandon, what's the biggest difference you've seen between somebody who's studied acquisitions, real acquisitions, versus someone who's actually been through one? So you've got the ones who, they study acquisitions because they were told that this course is great or not, but somebody who's been through one, night and day, right?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how many searchers out there that have gotten MBA that have gone to school for it and tell me how it's done, and we've done 900 deals. How many deals have you done? Again, they apply these concepts that are taught in school that don't always appreciate and matriculate into the real world and how deals get done. I see people just demanding certain things. I'm like, again, you don't realize this is negotiation. You can't demand anything of anybody. Like, they don't understand that concept, and they've been taught you have to do it only this way or it's not going to work, or you're going to risk all your money in your deal failing. The problem is they prey on your fear. For those of you listening, they prey on your fears of failing, and they promise to promote you and help you along the way. My question is, how many of their actual students or course takers got actual support from them and got it done? And where did that student start? That student already done acquisitions, was just looking for more way to refine their skills, or is it somebody off the street who, quite frankly, they should be looking at your balance sheet saying, are you even capitalized to go do a deal? Instead of sending you out there blindly, knowing you never had the funds, means, or ability to pull the trigger or the background. You have to look at yourself, too, in the mirror and know, are you in that position to make that move? Do you have the work experience, the capitalization, and the means to make the move? And I think often they don't teach that. They'll teach you what an LOI is. That's fine. That's great. They'll teach you, what a Q of E is. That's cool. They may have some referrals they can send you. That's fine. But none of that matters if you don't have the means and the background to do something. Just because they tell you should do it, you have the ability, that's great in their ads. But have they actually sat down and spoke with you and really coached you and understand you've got the means? Because a lot of the people I've seen come in don't have the background. Well, I'm going to use an SBA loan and buy this business. I'm like, okay, what's your background? I've never managed anything in my life. I'm 27 years old. You know what the lenders are going to say? Bye. Unless you got $1 million laying around for free and they can attach that to the loan, and sure, you get the capital. They don't care. But let's be honest. For those of you listening, default rates are at 4.5% and climbing straight vertical right now, from the nonsense that this spun off years ago. And lenders are really tightening up. At my conference last month, we had a lot of bankers saying we are tightening up extremely hard. You better be within a 90-mile radius. And let's bring this up to you while we're here. If you live out of state for a business and you're looking to move across the country, that is going to be very hard to do. It is. Because they're going to factor in your loss of salary at your current job, the cost to move. So you have to factor in all these issues that a lot of these gurus don't tell you, and that lenders are going to really critique you on. So before you go spend a bunch of money on a Q of E and spend a bunch of money on lawyers and accountants and all this stuff, logically look at where you're going to be and where you can acquire something. If you're willing to move, that's fine. We've had a couple guys do that. That's okay. But they are far more capitalized and more experienced, and the lenders felt comfortable doing it. There is a difference there. And to answer your question, Chris, yeah, we see them a mile away. And to be fair to you, the lenders basically told the searching community, if you're not well capitalized and you're not local, don't bother calling us. I think Live Oak Bank, the largest lender in the country for SBA, had 6 criteria. And their main guy came in our conference and said, if you're missing 1, that's really hard. You're missing 2, it's done deal. Just straight up done. Not going to get through. And their default rate's about 2.5%. So they're doing a really good job compared to a lot of other lenders. So just for perspective, that matters. The question I would ask you if you're out there listening to that guru, if you're talking to them, ask them how many deals they've closed and how many students have done so as well. I know I mentioned, but I want to reiterate that again. Find out what their success rate is, or what they're playing for, or how they're measuring that metric. It's easy. Me and you, Chris, could write a course today and sell for $10,000 a month. Then we're not in the business of actually helping people get businesses sold. We're in the business of selling a course. That's 2 very different metrics. And that's where a lot of the money is going. And that kind of brings us to the next major pitch. And you know this term, but I'm going to say it. And if I hear it again, I'm going to pull my hair out on the phone from a buyer, which comes straight to this point. I want to buy a boring business. Just put a gun in my head and pull the trigger, please, if I hear that one more time. There is no such thing as a boring business. Every business has challenges and work to do. It is not 100% passive, right, Chris? Let's just preach that again today. There is no such thing as a boring business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, social media has done a great job of
branding that,
making business ownership look effortless, right? Like just
yeah.
buy something and it's like a cash cow. It's just going to keep producing for you. So, you know, what you rarely see are the equipment failures. You talked about that washing business earlier.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
not going to who do you think's going to fix that? You're going to keep calling people out to fix stuff? You know, the people I know that own those kind of businesses, yeah, they've got people that help repair, but they're also on site when they need to be. They go around and they collect the money and they do all the work, and that's the only way those businesses really make money. If you're interested in break even, maybe, I guess, but you're going to also have staffing issues. Staffing is so hard right now across all industries. I don't care what industry you're in. Even finding somebody to run your washateria, that's going to be hard. Then you're going to face customer complaints. Who's going to handle those complaints? Are you going to hire somebody to do that? And what if they stop working for you? You're
going
to have you're going to have cash flow challenges. Yeah, stealing's that's going to cause some cash flow challenges, right? It's all the things that owners deal with every single week. There is no boring business. You've got roles and responsibilities in every business. I'll tell you this, experienced buyers understand those realities. People who have been through it, who've owned a business, which is why, you know, that's exactly why they value businesses differently than someone who thinks they're buying passive income on day one.
It's not passive.
You know, Brandon, is there any business out there that's truly passive? I mean, people think I know I get this call all the time, the storage facilities.
Yes.
That's a lot of work. People stop paying their rent. You got to go through the process of getting that cleaned out. I guess there's an auction involved. I'm not super familiar. I just named that one out of the blue, but there's still things that have to be done that you can hire people to do, but the more you hire, the closer you are to, you know, not being that profitable. So you've got to be involved as a business owner, and if you think that you don't, you're fooling yourself.
If the cat's away, the mice will play.
For sure.
Leadership matters significantly in running an organization. Not being there is not good a lot of time. There are times you can, over a long time, if you can find the right operations person you can trust emphatically, yes, you can take your foot off the gas a little and be more quote-unquote semi-absentee. But that's become the pitch now. Don't be passive. Don't be around. Look, I'm a business owner, Chris. You're a business owner. I own property. You own property. You can be as passive as you want for 6 months, and then your neighbor can build a parking lot behind you and flood your office building once a month. So how passive is it? That's what I'm dealing with right now.
I was about to say, that sounded a little personal right there.
It is personal, but it tells you can even kick your foot off the gas for a minute. Your tenants may not tell you, oh, by the way, the HVAC's been leaking on the roof. I got tile damage. Why didn't you tell me a month ago? Oh, I thought I was just busy. Like, you don't get it. If you're not looking at it, you're responsible. Whether it's a business, it's property ownership, self-storage, you know, RV park, mobile home, whatever the boring businesses are. Taking your eye off the prize and limiting yourself is not good. And the workers and employees and customers realize that. There are places I've gone to in town for years, and I've seen the owners step out, and I've seen quality drop off over time. They don't want to admit it, but it's true. Maybe the cash flow doesn't drop dramatically, but for their quality of life, their opportunity cost, it's worth it to them. The problem is that erosion continues to build, and at some point it becomes either a reputation problem, it isn't fixable, or worse, you just lose your customer base and people don't want to come back. Yes, so washaterias don't require full-time being there every day, 9 to 5 probably. You're right. And the gurus aren't wrong there. But here's a great story. Here's a great example of how that can go wrong. The lady came to us, a widow, had 3 laundromats in the area. Husband took care of them, checked on them weekly, collected the coins, went through all the work, checked all the machines, right, Chris? He passed away unexpectedly. She didn't know what to do. These are thriving laundromats. All 3 started losing money very fast. Workers were stealing. Machines weren't being told they were broken. They were just sitting there not working for weeks. She didn't check on them. Oh, it's a boring business, right? Chris just makes money, prints money. Guess what? It started declining very rapidly. We probably could have sold for around $1 million. Ended up selling for probably total package around $300 to $500. And everybody wanted to do a no money down payment and leverage buyout. And guess what? She couldn't because of estate issues to pay off the other estate, part of the estate. So again, it's the only 2 people who bought it were people in the industry who had cash, who understood that they had to go in there, fix the machines, and rotate it and to maintain them. They were willing to take the risk because they understood it. The average person, no. And the best part is, if I can see P&Ls, I can write the check. Well, we don't have P&Ls for this business. What do you mean you don't have P&Ls? It's a cash business. The lady hasn't checked the machines. Like, one of the buy sales with to go out there, open the machine and open the drawer and tell them, take a look. And the buyer said, I'm in the business. I know exactly how much that is. I believe it. Let's go. That's how it got sold.
Right.
This is not some Q of E being done for a laundromat, people. Like, to read it again. Boring businesses do not exist. Every business is going to have its problems. Some may be more maintained well and have less headaches, right, Chris? Like, probably a laundromat is less stressful than running a restaurant or a bar in a nightclub at 12 o'clock at night. Yeah, probably a little less stressful. But they all have their problems. They all have their issues, and they all have things you have to do. And they don't just print money. And again, back to my guru comment earlier. Oh, I bought a laundromat, and it pays you $10,000 a week. Yes, that's revenue. That's not pure profit. Notice they don't say profit. They say, I got $10,000 a week. They never said profit. They said revenue. They're not counting the expenses for the water, machine maintenance, cleaning, rent. Come on, Chris. That $10,000 did not finish as $10,000 by a mile. It got knocked down a lot more.
Right.
So don't fall for that, please. And if you got questions, like Chris said, we can free to better sources. We can walk you through it. But then becomes maybe my next sore point, Chris, for those of you listening, and this applies a lot to you buyers. I have a very big problem with buy-side advisors charging buyers upfront retainers and premiums without results, right, Chris? There's a lot of gurus out there that now have their preferred vendor network, and you pay to belong to this network. You know what's funny? They're scraping the same contacts of all the same sites you can look at for free to do your own diligence and give it to you, and you're paying them, and they claim they're going to advise you. A lot of these jackasses, excuse my language, don't do a damn thing except send the lead, take the information we give you that me and Chris have developed to make this business marketable and sellable, and they just rubber stamp it and send it back to us. They're not advising you. Looking for the easy upfront money. If they actually make a commission on something, that's great. I mean, I hate to say it, and there are some good buy-side firms on the lower middle market and do have value. But at the end of the day, let's be honest, Chris, the low level and the Main Street level, the buy-side stuff, it's tough. Are there some good people out there? Yeah, there's probably a few good ones. But overall, the buy-side guys just, and I'll say this nicely to all you buyers listening, if you're not willing to do any due diligence on your own, and you're not willing to look at stuff and just rely on someone else's pure judgment to buy a business, you've got a problem. It's going to be your note, your responsibility, in your lap to handle, right, Chris?
Yeah.
If you're just outsourcing that because it's easy, you're never going to have the balls to buy a business, excuse my language. You're not. And if you got to rely on everyone else's input to do something, you don't have what it takes to buy a business, and don't waste your money searching like that, right, Chris? And there's some other issues too I think we should talk about, but reiterate on that a little bit, because you and I see that coming a mile away. Those buyers and certain influencers sends us leads all the time that we don't even ask for, puts us in email chains. They're all worthless.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I want to speak to business owners and sellers, because I hear it from them all the time when they reach out to me. They've been getting blown up for a while now of people calling them saying they're interested in their business, that they represent so-and-so with so-and-so, just whatever. Again, I'm going to put a disclaimer. There are absolutely legitimate buy-side advisors out there doing outstanding work for private equity groups and for strategic buyers.
In the lower middle market.
But you need to do your research on those companies when they come calling, and make sure that they are one of those legitimate companies. Make sure they are an actual private equity group. Are they running a two-man show, or is this, I talked to a handful of them. There are 80 people in their organization. They've got every facet of buy-side advisory filled. As a seller, you got to remember that titles don't close deal. So when somebody calls you and says they're the executive vice president of so-and-so private equity, it doesn't matter. You look them up. Capital closes deals, not titles. So just because they call with a fancy title and they tell you who they are and tell you they're representing, it sounds exciting. I get it. As a business owner myself, not now that I've been a business broker for 10 years, but probably 15 years ago, somebody called me in my mid-30s and said, hey, we're interested in buying your... Well,
sounds great.
This is great. This is not the average customer calling to order something or complain. I didn't expect this call. This is exciting. But before you get excited, if someone says they're representing a buyer, you need to know what that buyer is. Who's standing behind that? What's their financial ability? What's their commitment? How many deals have they closed? That's what you and I, Brandon, deal with every single
Every
day.
day.
We're filters. We kick out the tire kickers. We kick out all these people who want to just have your information. Maybe they're doing a research project sometimes. You ever get those? I get they email me from
emails.
they email me from a .edu email address. It's hilarious. I love those. It gives me a good laugh for a minute. But, Brandon, do you think sellers sometimes give way too much credibility to the person making the call instead of looking at the buyer that's apparently they're representing? You see that all the time?
Yes, because like any good business owner, one day you have to get out of business. And it sounds like you just got the Hail Mary thrown to you, right? Great, I've got my chance to get out. And I understand that appeal. But let's talk about why you have to be careful with that. Because like you said, Chris, do you have the capacity to perform? Is this legitimate? Before you even start, should you get advice? Because remember, that buy-side advisor is representing the buyer. Do you need to talk to somebody else before you start divulging and strategizing what you're worth? But let's talk about another issue with these buy-side advisors that you kind of leaned into, but I want us to talk about because you've had direct experience with it. I've seen it too, but you've had a lot more than me recently. And I want to put this out there for searchers and buyers out there that you need to be very, very, very careful about. We have an automated NDA system. So when someone inquires on something we have online, our automated NDA goes out to you automatically and you can sign it. And if you have capacity to perform with the financial information, we can then have discussions about what the business is, who it is, where it is, et cetera. Right, Chris? There are buy-side firms representing buyers, people like you out there, that are filling out NDAs with your name, signing your name, and obligating you to a legal document that you didn't sign. You need to think about that. If you talk to a service and they're going to do outreach, how are you going to handle NDAs? When are we going to be involved in the process? We've had bots sign NDAs, right, Chris? We've had AI agents sign NDAs, and we confronted the agent via email, and the agent couldn't explain what was going on. Yet it obligated what appears to be a real person to a contract they have no idea they signed. And then their response is, we have other people under NDA. And sellers, if someone says, we'll give you an NDA to sign, ask them who else, they have an NDA on anybody else in their firm. Because a lot of buy-side advisors are getting opportunities like this and then shopping it to everybody else because they're all under NDA amongst each other. That's bullshit. I'm sorry. You want to look at a deal, you sign it yourself individually, not through somebody else who signs with another person who can then filter to different groups. There are AI agents out there now just inquiring on stuff for people. Some are real on behalf of others. Some I think are just phishing. But we got back-to-back leads. You did, Chris.
Yeah.
From two AI agents, same landing page, slightly different tweak for these two different potential buyers that signed NDAs that personally did not sign them. That's a scary thing out there, folks. You're getting obligated to contracts you have no idea you're signing. So when you say, Chris, screen that firm, that's one of the first things you should find out how that's going to be handled. No AI agent should be signing your name on a contract you don't know and then obligate you something you've never done. And we push back on that. And funny how the whole argument collapsed from the buy-side firm, right, Chris? Couldn't understand, couldn't define who they were, wouldn't give us their name, just, we represent the client. Okay, but who are you? Did you sign this? Oh, it was signed. Well, who signed the document? Right, Chris?
Yep. You're not wrong.
And that's evolving by the day, is it not?
Yeah, it's getting tricky out there.
And if you're paying a retainer for that, that's absolute garbage. You should get your money back now. Because you don't know how many documents you've, in theory, signed. And you make one mistake, that's on you, man. It's frustrating. It is. Let's talk about some of the YouTube stuff too, Chris. We talked about the platforms. We talked about buy-side advisors. We talked about some of the guru stuff. But the do-it-yourself content out there, there's a lot of really, really bad advice in that. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. And I see this pitch, and it's going to sound selfish, but I'm going to say it. Don't use a broker, save money. Sure, if you've got the means and capacity, power to you, right, Chris? That's fine. Let's be honest, though. The pitch to sellers, well, save money, don't pay a broker for this fee. Those same companies love to work with us. They talk trash about don't use a broker, save on the fee. You know why they say that? Because they're going to nickel and dime you to death. Chris just did a deal. Completed yesterday, over $10 million. Sir, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
Was there not a same group who tried to buy it about a year ago, who pulled that stunt to screw the owner almost $1 million in working capital, and then the next week put an ad out saying don't use a broker, save on the fee? And didn't that same group violate the NDA and call our client, the seller, and the operations manager directly behind our back, trying to renegotiate a deal when it was under contract?
Yeah, don't you want to do a deal with a company like that?
Isn't that sounds like a really reputable person you want to work with?
Yeah, it sounds like the deal's really gonna make it to the finish line, and you're gonna feel like a good, honest deal just
So
happened.
yeah, don't use a broker. Save 10%. Yeah, and this guy would have lost 10% in just value alone, if not more.
Yep. Yeah.
Hey, I'll put a shameless plug in there for us. We do a good job. And quite frankly, whenever that's the pitch to get around, be careful. They're preying on your fear and your greed out there for those of you listening. There's nothing wrong with paying for good service. And if you can do it yourself without it, that's fine. I have no issues with that. But don't get locked into these schemes and do it yourselves. There is so much more to selling a business than you realize. Just because someone taught you how to calculate EBITDA or SDE real quick on a YouTube video does not mean you know how to properly do it, put it out there, advertise it, and get it done. I see it time and time again for sale by owners on Biz by Sell or other websites. Business is completely mispriced. Financials are a mess. Have them in the wrong categories on the ad. It's a mess. And groups love to prey on you like that because they can beat you up and out-math you, as I'll jokingly say. They'll find a way to twist the math and make you justify to you why it's not worth what it's worth. Had Chris not been there, the client would have lost multi-seven figures, right?
Yeah. For sure.
Is that worth working with us? I think it is.
Yeah. Your do-it-yourself term reminds me of I once, when I was younger, 20s, I tried to do it yourself on some HVAC in my attic. Had no business being up there, no business looking at what I was looking at, had no formal training, didn't even know, just was up there trying to save a buck, right? That's exactly why I was up there. I didn't want to call the guy. I was early 20s. I didn't want to pay the guy 150, 175 bucks, come out and tell me I can do this. After I fell through the attic floor into the next room down on the second floor, I quickly realized that I'm going to pay that guy every single time for the rest of my life to show me what I need to know, because when I don't know it, things like that are going to happen. And that's exactly the same thing for buying a business. You know, the internet is great for learning concepts.
Yes.
But buying and selling a business is rarely a one-size-fits-all process. Every company is going to have different financials, there's going to be different industries. There's different risks. There's different financing options. And like you just said, don't get me started on net working capital, debt service, cost of capital. Unless you've studied all that, you're basically like trying to be my son's experimenting right now with day trading a little bit to a degree, and he has no business doing it, but we're going to let him figure it out the hard way. You're basically, yeah, let's see how that goes. He's limited on funds, so I'm not too worried about it. He's in college, so.
Hey, respect, try. You got to learn sometimes.
Well, yeah, we'll let him test it. He's got a little bit of money saved up from an internship, so we'll let him try. But my point in saying all that is, unless you've gone out there and you know what you need to know to do this, finding a YouTube video that gives you what are you watching it for, 15, 30 minutes? Maybe it's an hour-long video. That's you got to hire professionals to do this if you want to do it the right way. That's why the rule of thumb, that's why rules of thumb make great videos, but they often make really poor transaction strategies. What worked on one deal does not apply to all deals. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and especially, let's take it a step further. Deals under $500,000 are way different deal structure and terminology and financials than deals of $1 million in value, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There's so many moving parts, and sophistication climbs by the dollar amount as it goes up, and it matters in how you present, calculate, and go to market. And that's where so many people get it wrong. They either overprice, miscalculate, they don't add in the proper factors, and they don't understand financing. They don't understand all the components that drive the core value of a business. And nothing's worse than I've heard somebody, well, I watch YouTube video on multiples. I understand. I'm like, okay, well then, since you understand it, give me your breakdown how you would calculate it. And it's amazing how many times I've asked that question, I could not get a clear response from a buyer or a seller. That just, well, that's the multiple. That's what you pay. I'm like, well, is it? Because the multiple is very, to some degree, subjective, but also there's market data for trends, but every deal is different. Every deal has so many different factors you have to weigh properly to get a deal done that makes sense. We work to get deals done, and knowing how to properly work and fill in the gaps when there's missing variables, other issues, that all weighs in making the proper decision. And I know it's tough for some people to hear that, but not all information you absorb is correct, and knowing how to apply it is just as important, which leads to the next major thumbstick we got today, which is AI. Don't get me wrong. I use AI all the time for a lot that we do. AI is a wonderful tool. If you know what to tell it, how to prompt it, how to understand what it gives back to you, and how to apply it. But it's only as good as what you put into it and your knowledge of understanding it and regurgitating it back in proper analysis. I get you can go to AI and say, teach me how to do my SDE. Explain to me this. How do I calculate it? And it'll give you some baseline stuff. That's probably not bad, right, Chris? But there are so many other factors it's not going to understand properly. And it makes up comps. It makes up examples. Like, I've seen it try and give me stuff, and I'm like, don't make up examples. Don't make up comps. Like, no, don't. I've taught it how to run to make sims and other documents and valuations for us, Chris, because I spent God knows how many hours teaching my individual platform what to do, right? Like, we're talking lots of man hours, data, refinement. Even then, it still can get some stuff wrong. That being said, can it be a tool to help you? Yes. Can it be a good tool to, review certain items? Absolutely. I use AI all the time to help work with Excel spreadsheets that I can't read or are missing items or recalculate the formulas. As a buyer, that could be a great resource for you. Right, Chris? Working on pro formas. Hey, plug in the seller's Excel sheets, give you new formulas, start working on it, right? Yep. There's a lot of ways it can be a useful tool, but it can't replace the human element of negotiation and deal structure and knowing all the little tricks of the trade and theories that we know and applying financing. It can't do all of that. Is it great? Yes. Is it limited? Yes. It can't replace a real human yet. And I know we had an episode maybe early on in the podcast, way back, last year we talked about AI changing the game. We use it. It's a great tool, but it is limited. And for people out there saying, save the buck, save the money, go use ChatGPT to figure it out. No. But has there been times it's really helped a buyer calculate what the business is worth? Yeah, great example. We sold one of the laundromats I mentioned just in the previous segment. One of the buyers came in. His friend told him you should buy a laundromat. If you know how to run it, you can make some good money. He goes, okay, this one's losing money. So he used AI to run the number of wash cycles on the laundromat in the units. And he said, AI's telling me this is the average number across the country. Here's where I am. If I'm running this and I can bump it up to this number, here's my profitability in theory could be if I keep the cost relatively same, right, Chris? Cost of scale. So much same amount of water usage, electricity usage. He bought the business because of that. But he used it as a tool to justify what the asset value is worth, not how to fully value the company. It took a lot of work from us and them, but that's how the buyer came to his conclusion. Could it be a good tool? Yes. Is it the only tool? Can it replace a person? No. I mean, I hate to say that. I don't know if it ever will, Chris. Let's be honest. I don't know if it ever will.
I'll tell you one thing from personal experience that I know AI can't do. It can't negotiate around difficult issues that didn't even know were issues. It can't read the personalities of the buyer or seller at a given moment in the stage of a deal where it's teetering on the brink of disaster. It can't recognize a problem because as a broker, you've seen it, you've been there, you've done it, and it looks this problem that you're walking into or you're working on, it looks remarkably similar to one that derailed another deal you did 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. It doesn't know that. And so as a broker, I'll give you a personal example. I had the deal that you mentioned the other day, or that closed yesterday. A lawyer, professional, was bringing his own ego and attitude to the deal. He was pretty mad that the other side wouldn't accept his changes. And it was kind of influencing my client, the seller, of a direction of basically letting the deal fall apart. And
at the last hour, mind you, the last hour.
11th hour. And when I say, let's say the 10th hour, because that's what time it was at night. It's 10 o'clock at night. So we'll say the 10th hour. We had 2 hours to spare. But I'm reading the room here. I'm seeing where this lawyer, he's trying to protect his client. I'm not saying that he's not. He was doing his job. But he wasn't also explaining what the real issue was. It was 3 words, and we're not going to talk about go into that granular of a detail.
It's confidential, regardless.
Yeah, confidential. But it's 3 words of language in this massive, massive purchase agreement. And so I hop on the call at 10 o'clock because the next day we're supposed to make a decision. 9 o'clock in the morning, you got to know whether this deal's happening. The buyer has put this ultimatum on it. Hop on the phone call and really just hash it out with my client of what this actually means. What actual additional risks are you taking? Are you willing to take those? Make sure he fully understands those. Mm-hmm. I don't think AI would have known to step in. AI is not going to wake up at 10 o'clock at night and know that, hey, this needs to be handled. This needs to be addressed right now. Or, pardon my French, the shit's going to hit the fan in the morning. And that's exactly what brokers are still needed for. We still recognize these problems. We read personalities. We understand human connection and human nature and the tendencies that humans do. And if you can't bring that to the table, you're not bringing the complete package as a broker. So AIs, I don't know if they're ever going to be able to do that. So I think that's where we're always going to have a place in what we're doing here, even though we use AI as much as we do.
And AI is so agreeable with you. So if you say, hey, is this scary? Oh, absolutely, it's scary. Absolutely, you should be careful. Like, come on, you know how it works. If you've used Chat or Claude enough, you know how it gets. It wants to agree with you sometimes. And if you give it the exact words in that little tiny framework, it's going to be like, oh, absolutely dangerous. End of the day, what it really was just a little misunderstanding of what the words are and what the application could be down the road, of which the owner felt comfortable, from what I understand, saying, yeah, I'm not worried about that risk because I've already checked those boxes off. So it's not an issue.
Right. It's
again, that's deal making. That's understanding and having the ability to talk to someone and walk them through the thought process and really just the psychological mentality of what it's going to mean to do it and sign it. Because you can ask 10 lawyers, they give 10 different interpretations, right? It's really what is your risk tolerance and how do you feel about the base language and how it can apply to you. And if you're taking care of business, then you shouldn't be worried about it, as the old saying goes. And that's where the human element has to step in. And God forbid you ask AI for a replace. It might give you God knows what kind of dissertation to send back, which, again, would cost someone $10 million. Like, it has its place, like you said. I do agree. I don't think it ever will fully replace because it can't understand those moments. And it can't hear all the data to even have the right ability to make the proper interpretation of those moments. And that's where the broker comes in. My final point, Chris, on our topics today of 6. You kind of beat me to it, but the broker is the filter. And we know how to handle these moments to properly assess them, address them, and coordinate them. And a lot of people out there you're looking at, they're never going to be in the trenches with you getting your deal done. They're going to sell you something. They're going to roll out. They're going to take off, take your money. And you're still by yourself out there working, buyer or seller. You're out there trying to get a deal done, and no one's there to help guide the transaction. No one's out there helping you understand what's pragmatic, what's actually financeable, how it should be applied, how to save time. And that's where we come in. And that's not a selfish, pat on the back here, self-promotion, whatever it may be. It matters because when you're selling your largest asset or you're buying the largest asset of your life and you're leveraging all your money and all the debt that's going to come with that, is it not better to be getting proper advice from somebody who's done this before, who's going to be there with you in the trenches, getting through the minutia and the problems of a deal? Because there's always going to be hiccups. And if a deal is perfectly smooth, something was probably missed in most cases. There could be times it could be perfect. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but there's always roadblocks. And Chris, you can speak to that just having gone through what you went through. Being there and being an asset and helping someone get through these problems, it can mean if the deal even gets done, yet alone get what they deserve for the deal. And also for the buyer, it's not about making sure the seller gets the most amount of money. It's about you getting a deal that makes sense and is pragmatic and works. We talk a lot of sellers off the ledge for completely unrealistic terms, ideas, structure, because we know it's not going to happen. It doesn't make sense for you, the buyer, to take that risk. We're pragmatic people. That's how we get deals done. It's not my way or the highway. It's what gets a deal done that makes sense for both parties to take the risk involved in doing the transaction, right, Chris? And that, at the end of the day, is the core principle that no one else is really teaching you. They give you their one-sided, quick segment, junk, use my people, use this. They're not going to be there when the deal stalls during the LOI phase, right? They're not going to be there when the lender has trouble. They've already taken their money, they're running.
Yeah. And if they're not there, I don't know how deals get done with them because
they don't.
You have to understand the deal from the very beginning as a broker to get it to the finish line, in my opinion. And that's not even when buyer meets seller. We're talking about you met.
No, you're right, Chris. You called him and it just didn't work
one
out.
Of the biggest values a broker brings isn't just finding opportunities, right? It's filtering them. We filter buyers. We're filtering offers, advice, valuations. There's so much information coming through. I think one of the biggest ones that we filter or at least absorb and make sure we understand is emotions of the deal, right? Our job isn't simply to move information back and forth. The AI can handle that. So if that's all you want, yeah, please save the money, but good luck getting your deal done because moving information back and forth, like some of these buy-side groups, they're trying to teach you that it can happen that way. That doesn't get deals done. You've got to be intimately involved in the deal from the minute you first met that client before the deal ever got started. You met the client, you hadn't even spoken about their financials yet. You're just meeting them for the first time. You're reading their emotions as a broker. You're starting to understand them. Is this somebody I can work with? Are they going to be, working with me? And are we going to go on this adventure? This is not going to be a 3 months, 6 months adventure. Sometimes it's 9 months. Sometimes it's multi-year. Sometimes it takes a little bit to straighten these businesses out, and some brokers don't want to do that. For the past 10 years, I've done that. I'm not sure if I'll do it when I get older, but I've definitely done it over. It's been my learning experience. I got a PhD basically in helping business owners get their business, not literally a PhD, but I'm being facetious on helping business owners get their businesses ready to actually go to market. I don't know if all brokers do that. But it's, we do this to determine which information deserves attention. That's what we're filtering, really. And I go back to my point of filtering, which information deserves your attention, which you need to let go and not spend any time on. And that kind of brings us back to our topic today is information. And that's what brokers do the best is filter information that sellers don't need to hear.
And, you made a great point. We filter and help set business up to be sold, help structure them. Get people prepared. The online gurus love to talk about off-market opportunities. Skip the broker, save the money, go to the online off-market opportunity. You said it best. 99% are not ready to sell. They're not prepared. They're not organized. They're not structured. So yeah, go find an off-market opportunity. And guess what? It's going to be really hard to get a deal done because nothing's going to be ready. And also too, I want to add this. I didn't add earlier, but I got a sore spot here too. If you see marketing emails saying, look at all these off-market opportunities, I'm willing to bet a lot of money that all those off-market deals are not actually business that the owner wants to sell, is going to sell, is really even interested in selling. You and I both know a group that would call an owner if he said, maybe I consider it. And he would put an ad out there saying that business was for sale. And people would call him on it. You and I know exactly which group that was. There's other groups where the owner can put an ad out there and think about it. You were like, I'm going to pay access for this service, and I get access to all these off-market deals. And you inquire, and guess what? The owner never calls back. You know why? Because they never were serious about selling. That's the beauty of working with us. If they've signed our contract, they're pretty interested in selling. They've made a full commitment to do something. You want to go chase off-market opportunities? Go for it. I don't blame buyers for cold calling a couple owners trying to find a good deal. But do you know how small a needle in the haystack that's going to be? And how hard it's going to be to get that information organized? When that owner doesn't owe you anything, and quite frankly, may not care. Like, great, you called him. He may be like, all right, great, this guy, you do all the work and I'll just write me a check. I have seen that mentality in action. I've worked with a lot of different brokers over the years, a lot of different organizations. You know what the lower middle market groups that buy say? We want a broker involved because you've gotten 95% of what we need already there and organized. They may not agree with our valuation. That's fine. They want to get it cheaper. That's sure, whatever. End of the day, though, Chris, we've got things in place to actually get a deal done. And groups that want to buy want that. You and I both know that. And so out there, if you're being sold, of course, all these off-market deals every day, all these great deals, be very wary of that. We had one of these guru groups approach the owner of Sunbelt, John Davies, and say, we got 30,000 businesses for sale on our market. And John goes, there's not that many for sale in the country right now. You're lying. That's the first thing he said. And then he said, who's this person qualified to teach this group? What have they done? Like, just call the BS right there. No, we're not sending you our listings, API feeding everything to your network that people are paying you for access for that we're giving out for free already. Why would we do that? For people who are trained in properly how to buy a business. And the worst part out there for you to listen who may have done this, don't be ashamed, or if you've thought about it, don't be. Just know, if you're paying someone all that and they're not helping you, they're in the business of selling you a course to make money. They could care less if you ever buy anything or not. They really don't. I think it's a pretty bold statement, but I think it's true, Chris. If they can make $10,000 off every person and they get 10,000 people, they made $100 million. Is it the right math? Did I do that correctly? I feel like that's correct. Let's double check us here.
You're going to have to pull out the calculator for that one. It's way too early.
I am. For those listening, we're calculating real quick. Make sure I didn't make a bad statement. It's $100 million. Why do they care if you buy a business? They've made so much money, they don't need you.
I think we're in the wrong business.
I question some days myself, Chris. And let me make this shameless plug too. There's a lot of brokers out there that will sit down and work with you. I have clients coming all the time to the office. We invite them in to say, buyers, come in, come talk to us. Let's talk about what you're looking to do. Let's look at what your resources are. Let's see how we can help you. And if you're not, where to get you there. We had a guy call us, not even, a few months ago, but to pay somebody $5,000 for advice. And we're like, that one, but what they told you is not going to work. He's like, what do you mean? That finance structure won't go through SBA. They changed the rules. He was about 5 minutes from writing a $5K check. He just called us on a lark because he thought he might get a second opinion. Could you imagine writing a $5,000 check to realize what you can't even do what they're promising to you? I mean, just drives me up a wall. Because I see the customers and I see people getting visions of grandeur that are never going to happen. And then they're disappointed when I have to tell them the truth. And then it makes us look bad. And then they get frustrated. Well, I could do that. I'm like, no, you really can't. Let's be realistic. Because if what you're proposing is real, I would sell every business we've ever had listed. Right, Chris?
You're not wrong.
I mean, the reason we started this podcast, you and I, was for y'all of you out there listening to get fair and good advice so you can make proper, informed decisions. We're not the anti-influencer. We just want people to make proper decisions and be better educated in the right modality so that when you go to do something that's life-changing, you can execute at the best possible level and be successful and be happy. So my call to action, all of you listening, is very simple. If you don't know what to do, you have questions where you are, you can reach out to Chris and I. We're happy to speak with you. We want you to know the real options and what the realistic deal structure and terms are out there are. And if you've thought about buying a business, and for buyers specifically, do a hard balance sheet calculation of what you've got capital-wise, what you really can do, what you really can leverage, and then call. And we can walk you through what that looks like. But just know, the fully absentee business that's boring is not out there. Zero money down doesn't work. And quite frankly, trying to save a buck and pay someone a few grand for a course, you're probably not going to make your money back on that. And shout out, we have a couple of people who've talked to us who spent money on the courses. And Chris, and 5 or 6 years later, they ever bought a business? They still inquire?
All the time. All the time.
So my point being, you can go chase all the knowledge you need. If you don't have the means, ability, or the will to do it, you're just throwing money down the drain for psychological satisfaction, not for actually getting done what you want to get done. Anything else we can add?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Just be careful who you take advice from. If they can't if you can't hold them accountable for giving you bad advice after you've gotten it, I don't know if that's advice you should be taking.
And question their statistics. I see ads all the time. 71% of buyers would wish they had known this. Really? Who did the study? I see that all the time. Don't be afraid to question the person you're trying to pay money to. Be sure you know what you're doing. That's all we ask. Again, we're here to help. That's what we've done. I've done for 14 years, Chris over a decade, our company for 26 years. We know what goes on out there, and we're happy to help you, and we want to help you. On that note, this has been a great episode on the Steps to Soul podcast. We really hope you enjoyed listening. Again, if you need referrals, you need help, myself, Brandon Bourgeois, Chris Sater, you can call us, email us, find us online. We want to help you. We love the S&B community, and we want you to be successful. On that note, y'all stay safe.